All fronts covered for you as we continue to get reaction right here on the program. We also speak to former Statistician-General Dr. Pali Lehohla on the passing of Tito Mboweni. Thank you so much, Dr. Lehohla, for your time on the program. So first of all, how do you remember former Minister Tito Mboweni? And I'm sure he's been described as so many things as we continue to hear tributes pour in. We've heard how people have also described him as a very decisive leader. But how do you remember him?
Tito Mboweni attended university in Lesotho and married there in the vicinity of the university. He's one man who has really not forgotten his roots in Lesotho, and he tried his skills in putting on a blanket, rather Lesotho way, but nonetheless putting on a blanket. But he was a very decisive, I would say very stubborn, a very steadfast leader in his own way. The moment I remember him very well, where we had a very interesting encounter, was when I had a problem with the consumer price index, which in many ways made South Africans suffer. And a number of them suffered because we miscalculated the CPI. I was going to talk to him about how we will review economic statistics. And I was with the current Statistician-General going to see him in 2002. He was quite excited about it. He received us well. You could see in his eyes that he was expecting something bigger than what I was presenting to him. So as we left, he said, Statistician-General, I can see the PPI is behaving very well, but the CPI is going the wrong way. I said, oh, Governor, there's no problem with the CPI. I reassured him. But it didn't take long before we realized that certainly the CPI was being miscalculated. And we worked on this program very well and ultimately got the CPI quite correct in the country and improved the economic statistics of the country. I also remember him well in his transformative program that he worked on when he was Minister of Finance in 2019. And we had to confront each other where we were proposing a different path and he was proposing his own path. And one of the things he said was, well, I'm going to consult the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa on this program. And you guys, if you are not following on what I'm saying, I'm not going to bend. And of course, one would have to say, well, he was a very stubborn person. Because whatever he was doing on that policy, we haven't actually gotten out of the problem in South Africa. As a Minister of Labour, I think he brought very progressive laws into our environment that are actually at times being challenged. But certainly he, as a Minister of Labour, brought very progressive laws. One cannot forget his cooking skills, the love for pilchards, the mayor or the Duke of Mogoebaskloof always entertained us with a number of skills. Very down-to-earth kind of person, certainly. And he's greatly missed. And real condolences to his family. He left us at a tender age. We still expected a lot from him. And his steadfast stand that he would take, including in his own party, he was always that kind of outlier leader that stood steadfast on principle and on policy. That is the Tito Mboweni that one actually knew. And for us in Lesotho, we usually embraced him and really loved him greatly for the kind of love and reciprocity he delivered for our country in Lesotho.
And Dr. Lehohla, I must say I chuckled there as you made reference to his cooking skills on social media, because you'd also see some people also, piggybacking on that to say that he must actually collaborate with that Tin Fish brand as well. But also, as you speak on his legacy programs as well as policies as well, I want to hear from you. How do you think some of those policies and programs shaped the country, being South Africa?
Well, I mean, the From the side of the Reserve Bank, they introduced inflation targeting, and at that time I was Statistician-General. I played a big role in actually determining what should go into the basket for purposes of inflation targeting. As a Statistician-General, I don't set policies, but I create the mechanisms by which those who set policies can make whatever they want to do to succeed. So we worked with the Reserve Bank very closely in terms of determining the quantities and the kinds of products that would have to go into the basket. That served us well for some time, but at the moment I think there is a lot of criticism around inflation targeting, and in part it might be responsible for the financialization of the South African economy. But the instruments that they put in place brought about a level of governance in the country that we saw. And of course, he was there in from 2001 to 1999 to 2008, when we saw South Africa actually progressing quite well economically. Of course, many would argue that it did so on the back of China, but if we remember that momentary years of about 6 years where we dropped a debt to GDP ratio to 25%, where we once knew that we could grow as a country at 6%. I was Statistician-General measuring this. Gross fixed capital formation was 24% of GDP, and lending was at about 15% annual growth. So those were the happy years, just that they were too short. And I think those are years within which Tito Mboweni was governor. Obviously, later when he became Minister of Finance, that's where we had a banter on these economic policies that certainly a number of ourselves say that they are not taking us anywhere. Not in the report of 2019 by Treasury, not in the current ERPP, Economic Recovery and Plan, which is actually anchored on that document of 2019, not in the Government of National Unity. I think if we were to provide some what we call recourse, is to really look into those policies and say, well, how do we change these policies so that we can actually create intergenerational value to subsequent generations. At the moment, if we look at our economic policies, certainly they are not bringing any, and they will never bring any intergenerational value to this country. The blacks and the colors, unfortunately, remain at about 20% or as skilled people, compared to 60% amongst Indians and whites. And if you look at the data from the census, we are actually failing to provide intergenerational value, while women are actually performing better. But the graph, it's all heading south. And certainly it's because of the economic policies that we have. We need to go and look at the legacy of the likes of Mr. Mboweni, Dr. Mboweni, and say, how do we change our course in South Africa in order to honor his commitment to the struggle and his wish for a different South Africa. Those policies have to be looked at very, very painstakingly in order to see to it that this country becomes a different one. At the rate at which we are going, certainly the demographic dividend will be a pipe dream amongst blacks and the colors. It's a serious pipe dream. We have a vortex of disaster for people who are 15 to 34. They don't have jobs, they don't have education, they have no better future. The only time they will see money is when they get to the age of 60. And at 20 years, they look like they are 60 years old. So these are the difficulties that we face. And in order to honor Tito's legacy as a person who worked very hard and believed that South Africa can do better, although the policies couldn't take us there, we need to reset, and make this country work in order to honor Mboweni, because he lived a simple life of the chef of Mogoebaskloof.
All right, that was former Statistician-General Dr. Pali Lehohla joining us there for his tribute. Thank you so much indeed, Doctor, for that tribute.